The guard station from which Gerard is headquartered is a relatively small building. There's actually not enough space for all of the guards to be there at any one time. It's sort of like for the most part, they circulate through the districts. They have different areas that they might take patrol or walk to. There's bridges that connect to Steinholt that are normally just stationed with a single guard, but every bridge is currently being monitored by guards that are throughout the city because of the White Plague, um, which leads to the relative rarity of the guardhouse being mostly empty, and giving Gerard the time necessary to like get the blood out of parchment with the recommendations that were brought by um, Anjay, who I'm not sure Gerard has met Anjay yet, right?
Doesn't sound familiar.
Um, so I'm gonna have a brief kind of flash to Honorine introducing Anjay to Gerard, just how she would do so, because I think it's kind of relevant given everything.
Mhm.
Um, Honorine would not say out loud she's not my girlfriend. Uh, so no, I'm just kidding. So I think Honorine, at some point, so Anjay probably comes by the bear house from time to time and is in like their circles and probably, I don't know how much she comes by the C2C compound now, but at some point when Gerard was introduced to her, I think probably she was introduced as like a fellow professor and my linguistics instructor.
And I'm bringing up a picture of her. Um, we have an action pose because she was involved in a rescue a long time ago. That was, I think, her character's introduction. Um,
It was. She reloaded a pistol while hanging sideways off of a horse, and that's how I met her.
It's an interesting way to meet somebody.
Yeah, and at that mention, like Anjay blushes and she says, well, to be fair, it was a terribly dull party before that.
It got very interesting very quickly. Rosa
Um,
Rosa decided to spice it up.
Well, Lorene, I do believe that you're blushing.
um, and at any rate, kind of cutting back to a later flash, Anjay had explained like methodologies to get all sorts of different things out of parchment. Um, the and it's at this present time with like a very deliberately dried room and everything like that like a fire kind of blazing in the center and moistening and then drawing the blood out with like absorbent cottons and things like that, letting it dry again, repeating the process over and over again, trying to avoid losing the ink at the same time. um it's I'm gonna go ahead and have him make a wits and I think you had just brought up the enforcer skill, is that right?
Right.
If you think you have something that is more appropriate to this activity, I am willing to entertain it as well.
No, I believe that's going to be my best option.
And Anjay's additions are going to give you like a +5. She's not present at the moment. It's a time intensive process.
With the +5, 43.
Okay. Yeah, so he manages to get it quite well. There's very little like run of the actual like handwriting itself, which means it could be even used to match to somebody's handwriting down the line. Um, so the actual letter itself is fairly terse. It says, Adrian, I have made the arrangements to bring you to Kirk. You will not be a wealthy man, but you'll have enough wealth to own a business and buy a membership in the Guards. Our debts are squared. The only signature on it is a T.
Interesting. I'd rather not make a supposition, but seems there is a tie with Kick. Now I just have to figure out who this T is.
Um, there's there's a few potential paths he could go as far as like additional questions as well. Given that whatever rank the prison as it is does not have multiple cells. It has single large rooms, so at any one time, people would have been able to observe Adrian, who he met with, who he was talking to. So undoubtedly, some of the prisoners who remain behind likely overheard some sort of planning, and it's just a matter of kind of convincing them that it's worth talking. However, it's highly unlikely that Gerard himself would be able to get information from them because prisoners code, like you don't talk to the cops. But if you could get a another criminal to do it, they might be willing to spill.
I'm just trying to think of who I can get to do it that is known to associate with me. Uh,
Felix is very possible because he's not necessarily associated with you. Um,
I was thinking Felix or the urchins.
the largest group of like young urchins that is throughout Vinerhard does belong to Phoenix's gang. Like there are a few that are independent, but they're independents for a reason, which is that they've done something to piss off Felix, which is fairly hard to do. Because usually that just means that they've betrayed another gang member or to the guards or something like that to save everyone's skin.
Yeah, I think that's going to be my best route is to go find Felix and see what arrangements can be made, either himself or through one of his contacts. Put as many degrees of separation between myself and this as possible.
Um, and the uh, he agrees to meet. It's along like the riverway, like near a bridge. One of the ones that they're like looking on the bridge, but not actually on it because the bridges are no pass zones right now. But there's still a good view of the water. It's kind of like up over here on the map. I don't know if you can see that.
Yes, my turn
Um,
covering up, but that's not.
but the um, he's happy to meet there. Um, it's also like it's enough of a distance that like Gerard can probably see some of his guards at work, but like they're not really like looking for him amongst the group of everything.
Right.
So, um, and Felix moves up and like sits on the stone wall that like overlooks the river itself, feet dangling off. It would be a plunge into very cold and possibly lethal water, but he's young enough that like he either doesn't know or doesn't care.
That's where Gerard would be leaning on the same wall, facing forward, looking over the river. I'm in need of some assistance, Felix.
Um, he says, that was my guess, he says, as to why you asked me here.
Uh, I need to get information about what occurred in the jailbreak, but specifically how Monsieur AJ was involved.
Who was involved?
Monsieur AJ.
I'm still not hearing that.
AJ.
Adrian.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, he says, well, I know how he was involved already. He was the ringleader of the whole thing.
We saw teams, but I believe there were additional accomplices outside of Zizio. I take out the letter that I've recovered and cleaned and let him read it.
Um, and he looks it over. He says the first person who comes to mind would be Tybalt Dedrick. He's the one that Adrian did business with. He protected him and his slaving organization from the guard.
That is a natural assumption. What they need is who got this letter to him and how he may have been involved, not Adrian, but Alonso Deca, how he may have been involved in the jailbreak.
Um, he gives a nod at that. If I find somebody with useful information, they might want to barter something for it.
That is understandable. Nothing comes for free.
He says, if they've got some minor charges hanging over them, can you make them go away?
I will make no promises until I know what the charges are and what I am treating what at.
He says, most of the people who end up there, he says, for a limited length of time are paying debts. He says they owe money because they stole something or they haven't paid their rent.
Those
They
are
haven't,
things I can overlook. But again, mon ami, I will make no promises until I know what I am trading for what I am trading for.
he nods. He says, I just want to know what kind of room I have to negotiate with. And he pushes himself off the wall. And it's actually like a relatively short matter of hours later.
Get the letter back from him before we part.
Yeah. He had handed it back after reading it. Like,
All right.
um, it's like that evening that he returns. He doesn't appear at the guardhouse, but like one of his kids does, and just kind of indicates it'll be at the same place. Um, and when he returns, he uh, he says, "I may have enough information." He says, just from loose lips and talk. He says, "But I might be able to get you something more specific in return for some clemency." And more additionally, some protection. He says, I have somebody who saw something, but what they saw was a guard doing something that they shouldn't have been doing. And they're not exactly ready to speak out against a guard unless they have assurances that they'll be safe and they can get out of the city with some coin in their pocket.
We.
And he leans against the wall. He says, there were quite a few prisoners who stayed because the whole thing seemed suspicious to them, seemed like a setup. And it seems like Adrian himself had the same thought. That was why he tried to recruit so many people for the breakout. He was hoping some of them would be able to catch bullets he suspected would be aimed at him.
Sounds about right compared to what I saw.
Um, says what they knew is that Adrian was promising that there would be a ship that could get them out of town. He says, but he was never willing to name the ship. And some of them suspected he'd never gotten a name himself.
That's just something that I can look into. Which guard was involved?
He describes him. He's somebody that works for Maximilian, the captain of Der Spielplatz. But in like not enough of a role that you would expect the captain himself. Does that make
Right.
sense? The captain's efforts are largely focused on like the academy and stuff like that and keeping that area safe. The jail is a much lesser concern of his because for the most part it's just temporary housing of people who owe money or done small crimes. So but he what is interesting about that particular guard is he used to be a guard in Feinerhard, which means that at one point he worked for Adrian and then transferred to the jail.
How long ago did he transfer to the jail?
Um, After Adrian was kicked out of the position, he managed to get a position at Der Spielplatz. He was like not well regarded and jail duty was not well looked at. Like it was kind of like a demotion for most of the guard because they all make their money off of like kickbacks from the populations that they're protecting, right? Well, the people that are in the jail aren't kicking back anything for it. So they're having to live off of like a very minimum wage. It's not considered attractive at all.
What would be the traditional method of handling such a thing amongst the guards?
Um, so the question is, how is he intending to handle it, or how's he hoping to handle it?
If, say, this guard's captain knew of what this guard is suspected of doing, how would it be handled normally?
Notifying him of the suspicion, and then if they can't come to a resolution between one another, going to Vasio with it. Vasio is the head captain of all of the guards of the city, so he would have the ultimate authority to make a deliberation.
And other than an accusation from the prisoner, I'm assuming that would need some kind of more definitive proof.
Um, it would probably require some proof in the way of like an outside confirmation that doesn't come from that prisoner.
Right.
Now, because this is not an era of CSI,
Mhm.
merely the word of somebody in kind of like honorable standing is probably going to be enough.
That's kind of what's going through my head as I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to get what I need.
Now, as a captain or as the captain of Finer Heart himself, he can go to the Captain Maximilian and just say, "This is what I know so far. I'm looking for more." And he might already be so suspicious of said guardsman. He's like, "Yeah, let's move on it." Does that make sense? Like
Nope.
that happens often enough where somebody is poorly behaving enough that they're inclined to believe it anyway. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. It is something I've considered. I'm also considering the possibility that there is somebody in between this guard and the captain who may be looking out for him. And I don't want to alert that individual. And again, I don't know that there is such an individual. I am suspecting that there may be. Um, I I need to get a little bit more information before I move too fast and before I get ahead of myself, if that makes sense.
Felix is kind of like watching him like think through all of this, and um, he says, "If you want, I can put my people on him, find out if the guard's been spending more money than he should. Somebody gets paid off for a murder tends to have coin in their pocket."
That's actually an excellent idea, mon ami.
He smiles and he says, "I have been doing this for a while."
Far longer than myself, and you will need currency to help you. And I slide him a pouch of coin.
Um, he he says it's appreciated. But he says favors is what is most needed. He offers it back.
Coin will buy many favors.
He nods. He says, but putting some of my boys, he says, on a follow, he says, won't take much coin from them. Says, we just need to know the kind of places he goes into to know the kind of vices he appreciates.
Understood. I will leave that to you.
Um, the uh, and during that time, Gerard kind of returns to his business as usual, which during this period, it's kind of, there's the first real we talked about the kind of like level of deaths that was happening in the last episode. But there is the first sort of reawakening of the city in the midst of winter that starts to happen as some of the worst of it passes. And there are people from the camps from Despair versus Why Flung around that are starting to move into the city. And there is enough death in the outside that like large portions of those camps are being turned into like impromptu burial mounds until winter breaks and they're able to like actually put bodies into the ground. Um, with the investigation sort of ongoing, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut to Gerard getting the first real opportunity since like the sickness has come up to check in on Montague and his troops and stuff like that. Since as some of the tents fade, like the lines between the two different areas starts to really delineate. And there's the first kind of like word that Gerard gets that Montague is seen outside of his tent, meaning he is recovered enough that he's outside and taking back like the leadership role instead of like focusing on his own recovery. And there's quite a bit of news to share with him, so it's probably just best for Gerard to say like the council would like to meet with you later to cover a lot of things, but
Oh, I have sent the information to you that I am providing to Monsieur Montague.
um the sorry, can you say that one more time?
I sent to you the information I'm going to be providing to Montague.
Yes. Um basically about catching him up about like the potential invaders and like the supernatural activities happening in the palace
Exactly.
and the possibility that his wife is involved or has become subject of possession or like the actual reality of it is not totally known, but there is certainly a belief that she might have been responsible for some of it.
Right.
um and so we're kind of I'm doing that kind of like flash over thing where you
Mhm.
assume that Gerard has been in the tent kind of updating Montague on like many things and what he's heard for like an hour or two of
Mhm.
just all the news, not necessarily sharing the source on every single one of them, but what come to hear. Um, Montague he doesn't look as though he got ever as sick as like Rosa did, right? He's definitely lost a little bit of weight, but he hasn't like taken on like all the white spots and color and all that stuff from like the later stage. He recovered faster than that.
Well,
Um,
sorcery blood in him.
yeah, it's kind of further proof that he's not sorceress. But that's not a given. Plenty of people die from it that don't have sorcery. So, um, and he listens to all of it with concern. He says, "I," he says, "I understand." He says that you were a nobleman. He says, "So you don't hear the manner in which peasantry often spoke about the nobles of Montaigne."
I have heard quite a bit, my friend, since losing my landed positions. A Dupo hears a lot more than anyone would assume.
He says, "What I'm getting at is that we often spoke about royalty as a kind of demon unto itself." He says, "Do you think this is more than just that superstition?"
I believe that it is possible, but what I do know is you, being who you are and how you came to be where you are, will have a great sway over the people. And that is what your wife needs more than anything else, is the trust of the people.
He nods. And he says, "The people of Freiburg came to our aid in a time of great need." Says they fought alongside us. The Wakun and the members of the council joined in our battle, and I would say, if not for their aid, we might well have lost. Posen was a formidable combatant, but they managed to keep her artillery from bringing the mountain down on our heads and fought alongside us in the melee. I would like nothing more than to go back to Montaigne and and to start to try to put things right. Says, but I am keenly aware of that debt as well.
Then let me be the bearer of your debt. I plan on staying here and assisting the council and Freeburg. But if Montaigne should fall in any way or form, then those same enemies that were defeated here will march on Montaigne. And without somebody of strength to hold the people back together to face that threat, Montaigne will fall.
As much as that easily relieves me of the burden of that debt, he says, and it is tempting, it is something that I would need to speak to Logan Seeger and the council about as an acceptable substitute. He says, thousands of my men owe their lives. He says, I don't necessarily know is that it is a debt that one officer can take on behalf of his general.
It is a debt 1,000 times stronger than any that I can bear on my own. But I would look forward to you standing before the council and speaking with the members. I am certain that they will understand the urgency as well.
It says, if you will convey to the council, to Logan, to Wilma Promst, that I would like to speak to them as soon as it is safe to do so, he says, from the White Plague, I would be most grateful.
Post haste.
And with that, Gerard is able to return to the duties of being a captain. And we'll assume that request is kind of put through, and it might be handled this game, it might be handled next game. It's going to be like once it's safe for Montague to come into the city, which isn't necessarily immediately.
But I will be putting that request through.
And Felix comes through again with, the kids having followed him or followed said guardsman. And he says, I think your guard was paid quite a fortune, at least for him. Says the kind of money that guards make doesn't spend very well on the playground. They usually have to go outside their own district to afford anything. He says, and none of the Jenny's Guild are open right now, given everything. He says, but that hasn't stopped him from making a number of trips to the tobacco emporium. He says to finer bottles of wine. He's picked up a few things from the Perrois de Mercantile. And Felix kind of makes a face as he tries to pronounce the French words. Like it's clearly not something that he's picked up. Uh, he says he's spending money that would take him months to make as a guard.
Merci, Felix. You have done a great service to me.
He says, and at least the owner of the tobacco emporium, he kind of hands Gerard a piece of paper which shows a debt of some like 50 guilder from past purchases that have been kind of like he's letting it off because he's a guard, et cetera, like letting him put on a tab. Paid off. It's obviously been filched from the merchant's records by some
Right.
enterprising gang member, but it will serve as proof of a sudden fortune.
Well then, I have a captain to go speak to. And Felix, whoever it was that got this for you, let them know that they have my gratitude.
Um, he says, "I'll make sure they know they did good."
And let me know when I can repay that debt.
He nods. That'll do. The in Maximilian, when sort of presented with the evidence and the accusation, Gerard doesn't. It's not going to even require a roll to get that. Like the captain doesn't exactly like think anything of this particular guard. Like he was a pain in the ass when he first came over, but he kind of like it. It's the Freeburg equivalent of the thin blue line. He gave him a job because he needed a job and he had experience as a guard. But he never exactly impressed after that. And so he got moved into the jail. He managed to mostly stay out of trouble, but but it is certainly adequate evidence that like he was involved in a conspiracy to murder that killed several prisoners. And it doesn't take much after the captain brings him in and questions him before he's naming co-conspirators. Every single guard that was on shift that night knew the breakout was happening and had guns locked and loaded and ready.
Captain, these are your men. I will bow to your decision on how this shall be dealt with. But I want one thing from this man. The name that the guilders came from, who paid him.
Um, and he and the guard, he says that it wasn't the man who paid me who was responsible for paying me. He was just an intermediary, but I know who the offer came from.
Who?
It says Diedrich.
You will swear your life on this.
Says, he says, I'm not swearing anything. I'm telling you, but I'm not going to appear in a court talking of it. He says, or I'll be the next one, having guards hired to have a throat slit.
I'm not asking you to swear in a court of law. I'm asking you to swear right now to me, to your captain, that this is the man who arranged all of this on your life.
I never met him. I met another who I didn't know, who gave me the offer and gave me the coin. He says, but he said it came from Tybalt, and I had no reason to disbelieve him.
But you do not know at all who this man was who gave you the coin, who passed this.
He says that he was Eisen. He spoke with a local accent, sounded like a gang. He said sounded like a lowlife. Says, but he wasn't from Feinhardt, he wasn't from Der Spielplatz.
He spoke with an Eisen dialect.
And what he's saying is specifically both a Freiburg local dialect and like a lowlife gang
Right.
dialect. So
Basically Cockney.
I mean, Freiburg is a city that is like number of boroughs wise and stuff like that, like about as big as New York. And I mean, like that's an appropriate comparison, but the districts are not yet distinct enough to have like different accents that are extremely recognizable. But a Freiburg accent is recognizable compared to anywhere else.
Because it's a bit more metropolitan.
Yeah, and because there's so many different like languages that are spoken in the city that there becomes a natural like melting pot of words.
Very well, Captain. I leave disciplinary to you. I will continue the investigation from here.
And he says, I am going to make a report to Vasya about all of this. He says, and I would urge you to co-sign it. Basically, like he's not trying to take the credit for it, you know what I'm saying? So but he definitely feels like it's advanced to the point where it needs to be handled. Especially because like guards killing prisoners getting out is going to be something that's detrimental to the view of the guards overall throughout the city.
No, I leave that to his discretion. I will sign whatever report he prepares. But I need to trace this information out before it gets back to the person that I'm tracking.
And that's where I'm gonna kind of bring the curtain down with him having found the person like responsible for it. Likely there was no boat ever. Likely there was nothing for Adrian to escape to because he set up the the impetus for Adrian to try to get his freedom, but then had people ready to make sure that he would never survive it.
Oh yeah, no, I pieced that much together. And I don't know where my accent just went just a moment ago, but that was definitely not.
That's all right. But I'm going to drop our curtain for there. So thank you, everyone. Welcome to the Shadow of the Wachtturm. Our producer tonight is one of the moderators of Dirty 20 Gaming, the delightful and compassionate Gloriosa. Our lore master for the series is the beautiful and benevolent Syndra. Before we get started, I wanted to give a content warning. While the spirit of Seven Seas swashbuckling adventure and shadowy intrigue, the story will deal with mature themes, including death, loss, suicide, and grief. Eisen, our setting, is recovering from a 30-year civil war over religious differences. May get dark sometimes, and there's no shame in bowing out if it's not a place your head can go at the moment. So without further ado, I'm going to have our savvy swashbucklers introduce themselves, starting with Shadow.
Hello, everybody. I am Shadow, also known as the True Shadowmancer. Tonight I am playing Gerard St. Germain Dupont, our resident swordsman and bearer of vendettas. On alternating Wednesdays, you can find me playing Alan Tiberius Miller, aka Tibbs, self-proclaimed King of the Road, in the Heartwood series, run by another one of our producers, the very brilliant, very kind HH or Hellhounds 20. Outside of that, you'll find me hanging out in the Dirty 20 Gaming Discord channel, as well as the Disparate Dice Rollers Discord channel, which I'm one of the founders. And with that, it will be my pleasure to pass this hot potato down to Bison, since you're looking to the side.
I was paying attention. Hi, I am Bison _Stonefist. I'm a regular on this channel. I've been here a long time. I'm not here as often as some people, but apparently having no life is, just what we do here. Um, I'm here 3.5 nights a week. Tonight I'm playing Gav the Grin, who is our sewer surf and suplex machine and just big lovable guy. Um, on the game I'm going to talk about this time around is going to be Deviant Paradox, which is run on Thursdays by the lovely Sans, who is also here tonight. There she is. It is our probably most dramatic show that we have, and I say drama in like the internet sense. Um, I'm here other nights a week. I'm here Monday. I'm here every other Wednesday. And occasionally you can find me on Nate Cat Gold Chain Live's channel. We play Call of Duty together, and I'm really bad at it. So let's throw it to Sarah.
Hey, I just got surprised by thunder. Hey all, my name is Sarah. I go as Sans on the Discord. I am on this channel 5.5 nights a week. Tonight I'm going to be talking about our Monday games. We have 2. And it's Pandora's Gift, both day and night cast. I play Clarity Pals, the best healer ever. I'm not a necromancer. And the only really difference about the day and night is our cast, but they could not be different stories. I will always love saying that daytime is the good guys and we're the bad guys, but it's okay. Other than that, you can find me over on Tango Productions, working with the Scar Venturer and Raw Paper Fox on stuff and things that'll come out eventually. Let's bop it down. Rory, have you gone yet? Down to Rory.
Fuck. I haven't been muted on both things in forever. God damn it. Well, that throws everything out the window. Hey, everybody. I'm Rory. It's me. As always, I am playing everybody's favorite sprinting, slashing soldier boy,
You!
Hans Reifenstahl, tonight in this wonderful Sunday game. And if memory serves, I believe I'm going to tell all you wonderful viewers about the really cool game that happens on Tuesday nights, Rise of the Temple. Incredibly in-depth homebrew mix of 5.5, 5.0, and House Rules Dungeons and Dragons, run by the incredibly creative True Shadowmancer in his own custom world that he's been working on for decades. It's crazy, y'all. There's lore for everything. It's really cool. I'm excited to dig a bit deeper into all the details of stuff, and yeah, we're probably headed off for some crazy adventure next session, so tune in for that. Tune in for the lore. And aside from that, I'm in a few other games. Watch the channel if you want to see the other goofy things I do. And that's about it. I've got stuff in the works. I'll tell you guys about it later. Who has yet to go? I'll go with the convenient option. Ruth.
Hi, I'm Ruth. You found me. I am here a lot throughout the week. I'm here 5.5 nights a week. And today I will be talking about our Friday game, Everyday Divinity, where you can find Bakhal using his beautiful storytelling skills for evil. But we're all exactly where we want to be. A game of horrors and oddly chunky descriptions. If that sounds enticing, join us on Friday evenings or catch up on YouTube. I'm going to pass to Honorine, who should speak up.
Damn.
Why did oddly chunky become the thing?
I heard that in your background.
I was just gonna say, did y'all hear that? Because I heard that through my headphones.
We
That
did
was
hear a
crazy.
background cackle.
We did hear distant evil laughter.
Jesus fucking Christ. That was literally after he said that, the night after he said that, I was like, that's the most disgusting thing I've ever heard in my life. And then it got picked up. Probably because he told y'all.
You know, with this group, anything like that is going to be run with.
Just fucking goblins everywhere. Hi, I'm Blaze of Gloriosa, better known around here as Glory. I produce on this channel a couple nights a week. The thing I'm going to talk about, I don't think anyone's talked about Oracle Force yet, so I produce on alternate Wednesdays our Masks new generation game Oracle Force. The next session is not this week, but next week. It is just a bunch of teenage superheroes. Make what?
It's this week.
It is this week. It is this week. My bad. My notes were wrong. It's a bunch of teenage superheroes making bad decisions and blaming each other for them. I said it first and I stand by that. I also produce on Thursdays. You can catch me in front of the camera one night a week on my own channel streaming Graveyard Keeper. And then tonight, as honoring, we keep being promised downtime, Siosa, but it's never downtime. Cease to cease. That's what I have for you tonight. Why don't we go talk to Back Isle? Let's go talk to Back Isle.
I'm sure you can come up with reasons why we shouldn't talk to Bat Kyle, but too late, the baton has been passed.
There are just so many.
Hi, folks. I'm Bat Kyle, for better or worse, and often it's worse. You can find me here on Sundays playing Len. Someone else can have this Doom Costin. I'm currently not in any other games, so I'm going to talk about this game a little more in depth. And we were talking about lore earlier, with Shadow's lore, and while I know Siosa hasn't been working on Shadow of the Wachtturm as long, there is still a lot of lore. And I know he's got a system to pull off and stuff, but he throws us with new shit all the time. And then, goes straight Molaram to our heartbeats when we're not expecting it, and absolutely destroys us at the end of a scene. And that's what we're picking up today. Probably with a funeral and a letter, I guess. Otherwise, you can find me on the, running a game on Fridays, on the Discord being a menace, and other people's Twitches being a menace, the chats of these other games being a menace. There's a pattern there. Can you see it?
There's going to be a slur in the letter about the death, is how we're going to...
Yeah.
Charlotte is not writing the letter. Otherwise, that's absolutely how it'd go.
That's fair. And that's it. So over to Siosa.
I need a reminder, I need somebody in the game to remind me after this to write to Kevin to ask him to have the bat cackle turned into a sound clip that can be redeemed on the channel. I think that needs to happen.
But that request, send it to him.
Just remind me when we're all done, or somebody write it while we're doing this. But all right. So let me sorry, I am Siosa. This is my game's Shadow of the Wachtturm, which is a first edition 7C Let's Play. This is one of my favorite games and one of my favorite systems. Unfortunately, this is the only place you can find me during the week because I work too much and I have to pay bills and all those things to eat in capitalism. Damn you, capitalism. But let me get us started here. In the ancient days of Numa, the great storyteller and philosopher Ceres the Wiser once noted that adventure can only begin in one of three ways: by death, by slur, or by letter. To begin without one of these incitements is folly, the debacle best described as an indiscretion, a dalliance, an escapade. But fear not, we begin tonight properly girded with a death, the most inescapable of the three, and thus the most powerful. And it has been death, death, death for the last several adventures because it's a plague. But in this case, it's a little bit more personal of one, as our camera pans in on one of the smaller riverboats that Jairus carved, his body laid to rest in it, with cloth and a few favored items meant to pass with him to the afterlife, being pushed into the middle of the river. It's not a full burial at sea that, like a Vestin might ask for, but it is the closest that can be accomplished. And the river is moving the boat downstream as fast as can be expected. It's slower because it's the winter, there's ice for it to move through. And Jera, she looks over to Runa, like they have a bow between them, and uh she has about as much experience with a bow as she does with, a pistol or any other kind of weapon. It's never been her life. But she raises it, waiting for Runa to kind of, light the end of it so that it can be shot out onto the boat. And the first shot misses more out of like nerves and cold hands. But the second manages to land like on the very end of it, and the flames slowly start to like crawl across the boat itself. It's definitely something that there's like a bit of a surprise that like all along the rostrum, his shipyards are like here on the map, and there are quite a few people that have lined the bridge that the boat's going to be passing under as it heads up. After word that he passed, he was well known for being a kind local shop owner that helped out others as they were needed, charged fair prices. He lived a quiet life, but he lived a quiet and honorable life, and he was good to his neighbors, and he helped them as he could. And there are more people here to remember such a small and quiet thing than Runa might have expected.
Sorry, just as the boat is like flowing away, she just quietly says, "Sail somewhere beautiful."
Yeah, and Jera like wraps an arm around her, and Sora comes to like kind of embrace from the other side. Brandy understands the sort of depth of the moment. She's quiet and just kind of like watching it and absorbing a cultural tradition she's never seen herself before. Like because the Vestin are passing into being Vendel, and that's largely what she grew up knowing. And now she's seeing something that's ancient.
I think Runa is like trying to hold strong and not cry because there are so many more people here than she was expecting.
And what she sees is like other people crying that may have had only like a casual relation. People who have there's so much loss, and there hasn't really been much opportunity to do burials, that this has become something of a public place of grieving.
I don't know how well Runa doesn't cry, but she's definitely trying to like stand with the confidence that her body just can't do right now. She can't manage it, but the effort is there. Because if she knows if she starts really crying, she's really good to be crying.
And Jera does start crying. She's lost her brother.
Runa is holding Jera, and she does start crying.
Briss, who there just hasn't been much time to kind of catch up with her through everything, but she in many ways there was a skald aboard the ship who handled most of like the occasions of music and stuff like that. But Briss was just as much a storyteller and a singer in her own way. Maybe not as like refined as a skald, but she begins to sing, and Runa knows the song because she's heard it so many times as a child. It's all in Vestin, so to the vast majority of the people that are listening, it's just one of those songs that has like centuries of oral tradition behind it. Does that make sense? That's as old as like a fairy tale. It's incredibly well known. But it's the tale of the runes. Um, and that probably is a lot more of a complicated story emotionally for Runa right now. But like in the story, it goes through each rune and like what they were known for, their greatness is, the things that were heroic about them that became part and parcel of what their rune was about. So that like the words of their names literally are interchangeable with like the virtue that they represent. Um, and she's singing it as a commemoration, and the fact that like even here in a city where like there's an entire Vendel district, you know what I'm saying? And this man, despite his solitude because of it, still espoused Vestan virtues. He was never, and what's more is he was of the class that was like the equivalent of a merchant class, a craftsman and like over a warrior or somebody like that, who most of the Vestan who remain behind are of that caste. All of which is kind of, is very complicated, nuanced, but like the song that's being sung for him is something that would normally be sung for a Scaregin or a warrior or a lord. But she's choosing to honor him with it anyway, simply for having like held to those beliefs as much as he did through his life.
Runa's just crying with Jira.
And Ingvild kind of puts a hand out to like the small of her back to support her. There's a quiet look that like says like you don't have to be strong right now.
And she isn't. She can't be right now.
And so I am curious because this is a public burial. Did Runa tell anybody else in the council about it?
Yeah, because I don't know if any of us have actually met Jairus.
You
Jarvis
guys
has
have
been
met.
frequently to the bear house. Like he
Okay.
frequently like brought Runa lunch and stuff like
There was
that.
like a whole
So
feast.
Oh, right.
We had like a whole dinner together and stuff.
Yeah, I
too.
remember that now.
Yeah.
I think she's been so focused on dealing with the preparation so that Jira doesn't have to worry about them and everything like that. And it doesn't, I don't think it would come to her mind because he wasn't as important to them as he was to her. And doesn't really know how, unless Ingvild would have told them.
Well, so I think that with illness, with so many people close to us being ill, if Runa disappears for more than like an afternoon or something, like people are probably like, I know at least Honorine will be like, is she okay? And
So
Rosa apparently, and Len.
I think usually when you have somebody who has lost somebody who's very close to them, it usually doesn't fall to them to like tell everybody. It frequently gets done by friends and family and stuff like that because you don't want to force that person to tell everybody they know, hey, I lost my best friend or my wife or like. So I think what it's been is that Ingvild has been quietly going to everybody and like letting them know like there's a burial tomorrow for Jairus. Um, and like that's been it. Like just be there if you want to be.
I think Gab would go.
Len and Rosa, I'm sure, would be.
Rose is there.
Same here. He's showing up.
Honoring
Make the rest
Gerard
that
there.
easy.
Yes.
And there's no sort of like Jera invites everybody back to the boat shop that he ran, which is now hers, but it's not something she's even thinking about, but like the workers have done their best to like kind of prepare some of the meals that Jairus was fond of. There's beverage. There is an understanding that there's still sort of like a play going around. So it's just left as like a, take something, leave a memory. And the there's a young girl who, when she sees Runa, she approaches and she has like a little toy boat in her hand. And she says, Jairus made this for me, but I think he'd want you to have it.
Thank you. Are you sure he would like to give this to me?
She nods and she hugs her legs.
She's gonna like pat the girl on her back. Because she's hugging around the legs. She'd have to bend down too much.
Yeah.
To her back.
So
I think there she would spend like a little bit of time in Jairus's room, kind of just,
it is a room that he, for the most part, shared with his sister. Although recently Jera has spent a few nights over at, like a few more nights than not over at Sora's.
More people in the house.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's gotten a little bit wild.
And we have a Rottweiler.
who is probably the best socialized of all of the Rottweilers that were given out, except maybe Whiskey, who's like over at the guardhouse. Oh yeah, Honorings as well also has a whole lot of people.
Probably the most decorated Rottweiler there is.
Prettiest Rottweiler in town.
And Jarek kind of talks to Runa afterwards. She says, I think I'm going to give over the shop to the workers.
You want to stay with us?
She says, I can work at the bear house, work on making stages with you. She says, it's just going to be hard to be here.
Well, you have a place at the bear house.
Thank you.
No need to thank me. I'd love to work with you.
She kind of
These hands
clears
get
her.
tired.
She kind of clears her throat. She says, I don't know if this is the best time to ask. She says, there's no ceremony that recognizes when two people are in love but not right for marriage. She says, but I think I want to ask your cousin to spend her life with me. She says, and as you're as much a person as can be asked for their blessing, she says, I want to ask you.
Yes.
You
make her happy. She needs that.
I want to keep making her happy. I want to be a mother to her child.
Brandy deserves a good second mom.
She is going to grow up surrounded by women.
Endlessly loved.
She kind of smiles at that. She just she touches her forehead to Runa's and says, thank you.
My pleasure.
And I think we'll cut there. We've got other people to go through. I think the city as a whole is coming into a place where they have to grieve a lot of the times without a body to bury, because there was so much death that they just had to be removed. Um, and there's and stored and thankfully it's winter so they can be stored outside without necessarily having to be like burned or cremated en masse or anything like that. Um, the uh, but that means that there hasn't been a lot of like ceremonies, and there's been a lot of a fear of like gathering to have ceremonies as to make the plague worse. Um, but slowly things are starting to reopen. And the I think the most unfortunate sort of shift of the weather and like the realization that the season is going to pass actually happens to Rosa one morning as she's kind of coming out of her own shop and like out of the council and kind of looking around, and there's something that sort of just like feels different in the air, and she's trying to figure out what it is when like a piece of the snow on her roof like slides off and goes straight down the back of her dress. It's just like it's alarming. It's that like, oh God, that's really cold. You know what I'm saying? But it's also like, oh, the snow's starting to melt. The season's starting to change. The weather's starting to come out of it. So up to you how distressed she is and how much it's like a sign of hope.
It would be an initial scream as what just happened, and then it's oh, okay. It's getting to be spring. Okay.
I would imagine that like her association of cold things and psycho grandma probably didn't
That's
help
why
much.
the scream initial.
Shriek heard
And
across the
people with
city.
swords drawn.
Oh,
show
yeah.
up.
My love? What?
And then realizing, oh, now I gotta go get changed because I'm soaked. So it's immediately back in because I gotta go get changed because I I already know it would be stuck in her bodice. So it's just melting right there.
Right along the spine, yeah. Um, yeah, so I think she goes back out, and when she goes out, she sees the picture from Jemay, the wedding dress that was like drawn out. And there is so there are more expensive dressmakers in the Philosopher's Stone, but like one of the best dressmakers she knows of is in the Riverfront. And one that she had like work on her dresses a few times. Her name is Della. I think we had her like meet her briefly in like a past episode.
Yeah.
She was the one who she still made dresses for the Jennies, but she kind of like made them come in through the back door and stuff like that because she knew that part of her part of her store's successful operation was dependent upon uh, presenting at least the appearance of propriety,
Yeah.
right? Um, and it's a long walk, especially with so many places having been closed down and stuff like that. But things are starting to reopen. They're starting to be sort of like there's more trade that's picking up slowly through the city as the worst of the plague is passed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
For the first time, like they're they're starting to take people who have less advanced symptoms up to the Philosopher's Stone to the hospital there because they actually have the bed space that they don't need people who are just critical. Does that make sense? They can take people who are just ill.
Yeah.
And so with it, like bridges are starting to be open. She's able to kind of take a walk through the city without presenting her ring and like, I'm on the council, let me pass. It's just I can just go there because I have business there. And in a lot of places, especially those elements of like stores and stuff like that that just weren't as needed when everybody was locked inside, they're starting to reopen. And uh there's all sorts of talk of like, when the city hall is going to reopen, sort of debts that have been accrued over the winter and things like that. What's the biggest surprise is how like starvation has not been an issue. Like this winter, nobody starved to death. And even though that was the greatest fear going into it. Now, a lot of that is because a whole lot of people died, and that's tragic, but it does mean that like um that is the normal leading cause of death during the winter, is people not getting enough food or enough firewood. And nobody has died from exposure, and nobody has died from starvation.
Yep. uh, she is happy that people haven't died of starvation, but at the same time, so
There,
many others did.
there's still an intense amount of loss, and there's no denying that. But
Yeah.
it at least means that in the end of this, there's going to be some people saying that was handled as best as it could be handled. There's a weird faith in governance in that, like, the one thing that really could have been done badly, which could have led to Seeger being ousted just on the grounds because he confiscated all the food at the beginning. A lot of people starved after that happened. He might have been ousted just by force of rabble.
Yep. Yeah, Rose is gonna take it to Della and see if she can make it.
She is the first customer Stella's had since reopening, and so she's like really happy to see Rosa. She brings her in. She kind of does the check in of like, "Are you and yours okay?"
We did not lose anyone, but a friend of mine did.
She says, "Did you hear about Lilith?"
No, I didn't. I didn't.
And Lilith Spratt is the member of the assembly that represents the riverfront.
Mhm.
And she's or sorry, not the riverfront. She actually represents the Philosopher's Stone, but she owns a huge number of shops in both the Philosopher's Stone and the riverfront. She was notorious as a sort of like ruthless landlord of like, if your shop wasn't making enough money, you were out. Like, and but she was also where many like first time shop owners kind of got to start. Like, you would start in Lilith's, and if you were making it, then you could buy a more stable location.
Yeah.
Um, she says, "I don't know the whole story," she says, "but I understand that her brother Hector, he was a haberdasher. He he fell to the plague, and she's become a wasson since."
Remind player what Wasson means again.
They're the people who just don't react to anything, like Otto for Hans,
Oh.
the like sort of
Shell shock.
aggrieved catatonic, that they don't know how people come out of that. There hasn't been cases. I mean, like, there might be an isolated case here and there, but by and large, being Wasson is considered like a permanent loss.
Yeah. Rose is taken aback at that. That. Dear me.
She nods. She says I won't say she was a kind woman, she says, but she gave people opportunity.
Yes, but Rose is just kind of like speechless at this. Hearing like she kind of gave up.
She
Or like
says,
grief overtook her.
she says, I I had her and her brother in here many times. Says he was a lout and a drunkard. Says, and I thought she despised him. I know that the only reason his shop stayed open was because Lilith opened and refused to let it close. Says, I didn't think she was capable of loving anyone, she says, but shows that I don't know how people express it.
Love is strange as it seems.
And she, "Oh, my," says, "you came in for a dress." Says, "No."
I did. And she'll hand over the design.
And her eyes immediately widen. She's like, "This is a wedding dress."
It is.
She fully like makes the noise with her mouth closed and like feet kind of stomping. You know what I'm saying? Just like very excited about it.
At that point, Rosa will hold out her ring.
Yeah, a higher octave than I can make. Squeal of excitement. Um, apparently that was high pitched enough that Zoom clipped it out.
did.
So I won't attempt to go any higher. She says, uh, do you know who your bridesmaids will be yet?
Immediate, like, glaze over eyes of, that was something I have to do?
She says, well, you'll need bridesmaids, you'll need a maid of honor. She says, I'll set aside appointments for them so that they can have their dresses made as well, and that they can be made to match yours. She's just like running through the shop. Like she's sort of, it's clear that after the winter that she's had, and like, this is a delightful thing to get to work on. And she's extremely happy about it.
Yay.
And it might, I don't know if Rosa would think of it, but Hannelore is probably also going to need a wedding dress in the near future. So she might want to like ask her to reserve time for that as well.
Yeah. She absolutely will. But also warn that she is also expecting twins. From a very, very large man.
Yeah, and it's a miracle the glass in the windows doesn't crack a little, her enthusiasm is absolutely infectious. And so, but yeah, she's taking the design, she's starting to like go through different colors and stuff like that. You had mentioned that you were kind of looking to have some different design elements from the different cultures thrown into it.
Yep.
And she definitely has some experience just by virtue of making dresses in Freiburg, and she kind of brings up a number of different like drawings and stuff like that she's done from like, oh, this was from an Eisen, this was from Montaigne, this was one that I did for Castilian, et cetera, et cetera. So you can kind of look through and see some of the elements that were clearly considered important for those, and can start to like pull different pieces of them.
Yeah. I ended up doing research while I was waiting for my turn. Yay.
So there's some specific elements that you want to have mentioned that she'll have thrown in?
She picks from Montaigne a more fancier fabric for the dress. But she picks like the Vodacci body style.
So I have a question in that regard. So Strega are married in a particular kind of wedding dress that is designed to conceal their features, but
Yep.
Vodacci noble women are not. Which is she leaning towards?
She's leaning towards the Vodacci noble.
Okay. And there's so for most of the Vodacci noble women that are not Strega, like that's kind of be one of the most important days of their life. So like those dresses are lavish compared to the sort of normal Vodacci standard, which is like a little bit underdone. The Vodacci are sort of willing to go full queen of the ball on a wedding. And so it's definitely something that like it is going to be an endeavor and it's going to be expensive, but like she's already happy to throw herself into it.
Yeah.
And she completely kind of offers an opportunity for Rosa to talk aloud about like who her bridesmaids might be, who her maid of honor might be, you know what I'm saying? Kind of like, if she wants to start like making a list,
She does. Players gonna have issues with NPCs because there's a lot. But like she starts making the list of bridesmaids and maid of honor, and it immediately becomes obvious that she's stuck between two people for her maid of honor.
Is that
And it's
between Runa and Honorine?
Runa and Honorine. And like what she's doing is like is like what is the worst possible thing to happen if she chooses either of these?
Well, and she says, the person to talk to might be, you said your friend is also getting married.
See, she is.
She says, so perhaps the two of you can talk and see if between the four of you, you can make sure that everybody's a maid of honor. um, she kind of she says, I've actually never been married, so I hear a lot about this particular problem, she says, but I've never had to make the choice myself.
Yeah, and Rosa responds with, and I have not been married either, so this is all new to me.
And I think there's a comment that's been made in the chat of that, like, not picking the sister does seem like grounds for a fight. And she does, mention something to the effect of like, if you have a sister and you're relatively close, that's probably the choice that the other person will understand.
Yeah, Rosa takes a moment. Her work, yeah, they need to talk because Rosa is honest with this. Like, my sister's never one for the spotlight.
She says being the maid of honor isn't about the spotlight. It's about making sure that you're celebrated.
And again, dial up tone. Poor Rosa knows nothing about weddings. She did not get like any of these conversations like you do when you're a little girl with her mom.
And there's the memories that she has of weddings is probably amongst the Fideli, in which they were occasions in which all of the wagons were circled, in which like a few were assigned to guard to keep everybody that wasn't part of the family out. You know what I'm saying? And there were dresses and the like, but like they basically just danced till dawn, and they ate and they loved that they were family. And that is a part of this that Rosa kind of probably might realize is missing. She does have family amongst the Fideli, people that raised her and people that were part of this. That she can send, like, not that they would expect to be like bridesmaids or anything like that, but they would want to be here. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. She needs to go see Anna.
She kind of, and Della is like, I have a lot here. She says, so I can get started for you, and I can start pulling down fabrics for the other dresses as well, so that they'll be made to complement.
Yeah.
And she goes and hugs her. She says, I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. I couldn't think of anyone else to do my dress.
She says it's going to be a lovely spring.
I agree.
Don't say that. You jinxed it.
And so that does seem like a good place to kind of transition to like Rosa showing up at like Gav and Honolor's. I think Gav has recently been made aware that the position in the Stone to Wizen has been vacated because Lil the Sprat has become a Wassen.
Yeah, he probably would have found out at the next or an emergency assembly meeting.
It was probably something that was sent by somebody in Sprat's like financial structure who like
Mm.
helps collect money and stuff like that. I can actually even assume that Gav has been there and has kind of like seen her, and she's definitely like being dressed by servants, and she's not a noblewoman herself. So all of these people are sort of like, if this financial structure comes apart because of all the shops and stuff like that that
Mm.
she owns, like there isn't an idea of like a corporation or a holding. She doesn't have somebody immediately to pass this on to. So there's a whole lot of very valuable real estate, which is like up in the air on top of the political problems.
Oh boy. And guess where Gav gets most of his income? Uh, yeah, I think he would. Gosh, I don't know what Gav would really do in reaction to that.
I have a question, like while you're thinking, if that's
Yeah.
okay. Was Lilith one of the ones on the elected, not the council, but like
The
she
The
was
assembly.
she was on the assembly too, right? Did you say
Yes.
that and I just
Mhm.
spaced it? I'm sorry.
I did, but that's okay.
I'm so
It's
sorry.
good to reiterate. Was she was picked specifically because she was a choice that the nobles of the Stone Dawson could tolerate, and that the common people were felt had enough sway to like stand up to the nobles and not just be an absolute like bent knee to them.
And Gav doesn't really know of anybody in Eisen that would
That
work
that
as a suitable replacement.
no.
Because
It's now a very complicated question.
yeah, and worse, that was one of his like uh allies in the assembly. Like
They
she,
definitely agreed on things. She was also the one who was going to be putting uh Margot on trial, though,
mm,
because she does represent the nobles of the Stone.
yeah, yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what he would do other than, offer his condolences, be show up for the or at her place to just because you said that there's nobody else. Like there's no one, she doesn't have any immediate family.
She became a Wasson because her brother died. And her brother was
Yeah.
her last family.
He asks a few of like the more, you know, someone in her position would have underlings that she
Mhm.
trusted. He would ask what her plans were in case she had contracted the plague, and like, is it possible we enact in a similar
The steward of her
contingency?
the steward says th the will that she had prepared was to give everything to her brother. She didn't contemplate her brother passing before her.
Scheiße. Oh, I don't know. Gav's not really sure what to do. I mean, he's got a debt to pay. At the same time, want he knows that it's not his area, quote unquote, but I think he would make offerings to some of the small business owners.
He says, well, most appropriate would be a public auction for all of her estates.
Oh,
And
okay.
and the coin brought in from them to be, he says, I would likely be the person most qualified to know what it was that she would like. He says, but
He thinks about it for a moment. He's like, perhaps we ask Koenigsegger to put these businesses in a sort of a he's like he doesn't want to use the term freeze because it's the middle of the winter. But just to kind of keep everything in limbo until the auction is prepared because it's still plague season. It's still winter.
He says
Um,
this would allow every shop owner the first chance to purchase their own business.
And Gav agrees with that.
And
This is a
says,
city of opportunities.
he nods. Um, he says, and some of those shop owners have lost their proprietors. So there will be shops regardless that are coming up for sale. She had and he kind of like rolls out a little map, like where, so like this whole area, where the Stone to Wizen connects with the riverfront,
Mhm.
she owned half of the shops on either side of it.
Oh, wow.
There's an enormous amount of riverfront. And not only that, it's all like localized to a particular area, which is sort of like a unique opportunity in and of itself. Does that make sense? So he says there was also, he says the matter of the hat shop itself. He says that is most, that was the thing that was most certainly personal to her.
Mhm.
If I had to make a guess as to what Lilith Sprout would like done with her holdings, the only charity that I ever saw her give to anyone was to her brother. Says, with his drinking, with his madness, was the only person that she did not look to profit. And says, and perhaps some of that money could be put to helping others who are plagued by drink or plagued by other devils.
Gav likes that idea. He also personally offers to purchase the shop and keep it in that name. To keep Sprat's name, and yeah, just kind of try and keep the shop open as a memory.
And I would like a portion of the proceeds to be set aside to take care of her personal home and to pay myself and a caretaker for the caretaking of Miss Spratt herself.
Of course.
Is that feel a fair accommodation?
Mhm. She has done much to give to the city. It is only fair that we give back.
Charity was not in her nature.
But it's not in her nature, but at the same time, what she did a lot for the city. Like
He says,
she
even in the worst days of Redmond Earhart, she was not somebody who gouged those who worked for her. She simply expected the best of them. She expected their shops to be profitable and to make good use of her space.
like Eisen itself, tough but fair.
And he kind of accepts that that's probably one of the kindest things that could be said about her. So kind of with Gav having resolved that, I want to like cut back to like being at the Hall of Records and kind of double checking and see any of like Lilith's other estates when Rosa comes in to talk to Hannelore.
Yeah.
From Rosa's view, Hannelore looks like a ticking time bomb of, am I going to be able to get married before I drop these babies?
Yeah, that's probably unfortunately what she says coming in is I should have told the dress keeper maybe that you would be expecting.
Gav's far enough away that he can't hear them talk, but every time Rosa sees him look over to Hannelore, he has the biggest smile on his face.
Yeah. And Hannelore is fully kind of like waddling as much as walking at this point. So and she sees Rose and she's like, "Oh my goodness, you're so pale." It's like the first time she's like really seen her face to face, and she gives her a big hug and she's like, "Do you need some soup? I can get some bread out of."
I'll be all right. This is just how I look now. But I survived.
She says, "You did indeed." And she gives her a squeeze and she says, "I'm sorry that I couldn't have come and visited. It was just."
Do not. Do not. You are
I tried.
caring for two tiny individuals.
She says, "I tried to send Gav with food as often as I could."
Without him, I probably would not be here. So thank you.
Then she hugs her again. She says, "What was this you said about a dressmaker?" She says, "Are you
I
are
have
you going to beat us to the altar?"
highly doubt it. But I do have someone who is able to do your dress.
She says, "I don't suppose they do house calls, do they?"
I can ask.
She laughs at that and she says, I might have to make the request. I can pay a little extra if she is willing to come to the hall, but she says I can't make it to any of the bridges without needing to pee."
And Rosa just laughs at that because, yeah.
Um, and I think they'll probably, they'll work out like some of the details of it and stuff like that. She invites Rose to stay for dinner. Gav has been uh probably very busy with like the politics of the things, but also getting to spend more time with Hannibal. It's no longer a thing where he feels like he has to be in like a dozen different places and stuff like that. There is a number of letters that are kind of going back and forth between the assembly that are being delivered by kids and stuff like that, talking about replacement. You know what I'm saying? Like obviously they're gonna have to do the vote themselves, but like looking at potential candidates and stuff like that. So
Yeah. The only people Gav really knows in Steindevisen are oh gosh. Oh, my brain. The painter.
he doesn't live there.
Oh,
He
son of
lives
a
in
bitch.
Drakennest.
I,
No, the
I
one
made that
person
mistake last time too.
the one person who lives there is like Carmela Kraus, the one who had the writing on her face because she tried to kill Felix.
Mm.
There's also DeRozan, who has like turned over his house and his estates and stuff like that, but is technically a resident of the area, but he might not exactly be in like popular standing given everything. Um, there's a lot that will have to be answered as a question. And I believe Gav had also been intending to go to Heelgrun during this time, or is he
Yeah.
rethinking it with the politics being what they are?
Oh, as much as he would like to try and stem some of the woes that province has, yeah, after finding out Lilith didn't make it, he's got to inform the Explorer Society that he can't go on the expedition he was planning on.
Okay. And they, um, Meredith will say, we do have some people who are quite excellent explorers and scouts. If you would like us to send some people down there to get a sense of what is happening, they should be able to do so in relative safety.
He appreciates that and he sort of explains the areas he's looking. It's a lot of it's around the castle itself because he knows that or not the castle, the areas surrounding where the Verschlingen is, because he knows that when an apex predator moves in, minor predators move out.
Um,
And that
the
becomes everybody else's problem.
the Verslingen's area is definitely expanding. Um, it's it's later in the evening though, that like after Rose has gone home and kind of passed on about the dresses and stuff like that, and Hannelore desperately tried to like stay up and chat with him for a while, but then was like dozing on his chest. Like immediately after dinner, and he put Hannelore to bed. When Felix comes into the Hall of Records, and it's late enough that it's kind of unusual for him to have come calling this late.
What can I do for you, friend? Like
He says,
it just
uh, it's a suspicion I have. He says, I think you should pass on to Hans. He says, I got about 100 new kids to feed down in Feinhard. He says, kids who've been pushed through the winter he says, to leave their homes, he says, and come here alone without their parents.
Why?
He says they're all coming from the same place. They're all coming from Posen.
She's either drafting. I will have to tell Hans, thank you. It means we are dealing with more forces than we expect. Do the
He
children
says-
say anything specific?
He says they're too young to understand. He says, sounds like they got pushed out. He says, with as much food as they can on. He says, I'm sure there's some adults that have made it too.
Were they specifically sent here, or were they just told to get out?
He says this is probably the closest place for them to potentially survive. We are on the border.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Bones, fine, I'll do it. He tells Felix to inform the guy who runs the newspaper, or whoever took over, because you said that guy worked for the Black Crosses and got beheaded.
No, he was just one of the reporters.
Okay.
He doesn't run
so
the
yeah,
thing.
to tell them to tell the Gazette that Posen is basically stealing parents to fund her or to field her armies and sending the children here. She's, unhoming children just as it's a little bit of a public relations dig. I realize that my head's half. Yeah, propaganda time. Kind of to use it as ammo. Posen's a terrible monster, and here's another reason why.
So he'll actually get a meeting with the head of the Gazette. The head of the Gazette is because he wants like some sourcing on it. Does that make sense? Like it being Gav's word is great, but he'd like to know more because they want to do something like more in depth. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And he says we have a number of people who've arisen from Posen lately, he says, and there's definitely a story, he says, of something going on there. He says, but what I'm hearing is rebellion, not Posen taking action.
He's like, I did not think such a thing was possible. The Iron Queen has cracks in her cage.
He says, that's why, he says, if you attest to this, he says, I'll point it. He says, but I think there's something larger happening there.
This is not something I can do on my own.
He says, you're needed here. He says, but I have some reporters I can send up there. He says, if you're willing to wait a bit for some news about it. But they will be thorough.
And be utmost caution. Posen will treat them like spies, and she will likely torture them if they get caught.
It says until Logan took charge, he says that was generally the rule, he says, with every Iron Prince.
I fear the extent to which she would go.
He says, I'll tell you what. He says, I'll do this for you. He says, I'll provide you, he says, first accounting before anything is published. If at the next council meeting, he says, you're willing to bring up the possibility that the press has protections.
It's like, explain.
He says, in Vendel lands, he says, because the press is considered a separate entity necessary for the function of their democracy, it has protections under the law from certain actions. He says, basically, punishment as a result of factual or at least well-intended reporting.
He thinks about it. He's like, I know it will not be popular in some districts, but I think I can convince at least. I think this can be done. I will do my best. Because I agree. I mean, it's like the difference between you and the shadow broker is you do it in the open.
He nods. He says it's a risky business, or at least it was. He says Logan seems to be well inclined towards it, and he's even made mention of that he's a daily reader. He says, which definitely means something.
He thinks this is one of the things that I used in order to learn to read, was your Gazette. And he's like, a year ago, I couldn't tell you this letter from this letter. But I also agree that it is good to read.
We do our best. And there's going to be like more details that I'll probably get into on the next session,
Mhm.
but like what they are getting for certain is that what you were suggesting about that she was drafting too many people, she already did. She drafted them to try to take out Montague, and she drafted them shortly before the harvest. And there was an enormous amount of food that never got collected, or there might not have been enough to begin with. It's not clear which is true. It might have been that the harvest was already bad, and that the attempt to take out Montague was a desperate effort to get enough money to buy food to get through the winter. Either way, what she has is a situation where an enormous percentage of her population is starving and is now in open rebellion. The best way to make sure that peasants like will fight you is that the other option is death. And suddenly her willingness to make a deal with the city and to marry Hans as a potential sort of like peace offering whatnot has another dimension to it.
Mm-hmm.
That it might have been a lot more authentic than was really believed by the council.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Gav would actually call a council meeting to share this.
Okay.
And he would invite Logan too.
Okay.
To make sure that he knows, because this is important.
Since that's going to come up, we'll have that like in the next session. Does that make sense? I still want to get people's downtime. So
yeah.
So I'm going to cut from there. And I want to zoom in and kind of like a much more narrow focus with Hans. The little shop that he has come to visit, the former, florist and now sort of being overtaken by black trees. The fact that he still finds it comfortable is definitely something. Like, it suggests that whatever change has passed through him, maybe he doesn't owe the Scatman Man anymore, but like the Scatman Man has not cast him out either. Does that make sense?
Okay.
He also is capable of finding a little bit more detail during all of this time about the actual place.
Ooh.
And
Okay.
the sorry. The original owner was named Hilda Stumbaum. Nobody has seen her in months. It actually predates the White Plague, but with the White Plague, there's just sort of an assumption that she fell to it and didn't have family or friends to like take care of her, which means the shop is probably going to be put up for sale, or at least like sold back to the city. And so I don't know, like, what is Hans doing? Is he kind of like taking care of the place? Is he like keeping up with it, or is he just sort of like spending time like sitting in it?
I think it's more like a little like area of solitude that he can retreat to. I think he wouldn't be trying to fix it, that's for sure. It's kind of got the vibe of returning to nature. He likes the idea of letting the trees that are growing there kind of take their course. both as like a manner, like a kind of a token of respect, and I don't know, a token of respect between himself and the city, in a sense, and Tiwasog, and then also just because he likes it, he likes the forest.
Um, there, there's not a lot of like you mentioned, these probably going to start like whittling or something, but because these are all relatively young Blackwood trees, like they don't have dead branches yet. They don't have
Okay.
like broken off pieces and stuff like that. That doesn't mean that you can't like spend time there meditating. And so I would actually like a roll to that effect, but what I want is like a wits and commander roll from him, right? His strategist.
Okay. Where are you, character sheet? There we go. Okay. $40 on the dot.
Okay. So he's not really sure whether it's like meditative or dreaming, but like he has moments where he's back in the forest doing what he did during that endless progression of nightmares in which he was commanding a force that like the creatures of the forest were attacking,
Mhm.
or the other way around where he's like in command of the creatures against invaders to that forest. It plays out in his mind like a chess game, but with people and just as much kind of like moments of like, a crossbow bolt hitting his chest and like kind of snapping out of it again, but without some of that same like nightmare feel to it. Does that make sense? It's restful and it's just possibility after possibility after possibility. And yet there's always a specificity to it. There's always these were real Newman soldiers. These are real Montaigne passing through. These are, Castilians like looking to sneak through into Eisenlands as part of an assault. But it's never quite as like filled with the same anxiety that there was when he had no choice in the matter. Does that make sense?
Okay.
It's more like a grand strategy view, but with all of the blood pounding in your veins, fear in on your tongue, kind of like sense of really being in a battle. That when he comes out of it, there's that sort of like relaxation that comes with like survival, like I made it,
That's pretty
or
cool.
or the brief sort of horror of like, oh yeah, we lost. I totally would have died there. But
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
alive. I get to like make new mistakes next
Yeah.
time.
A lesson learned as opposed to another nightmare is over.
And the uh um the it's several days of this when he's interrupted for the first time with a knock on the door of the florist shop.
Carefully make his way through and thinks about it for a second and cracks the door.
And he sees Kazi there with his hood up, kind of, hiding his darker skin features. He definitely is somebody who would stand out in the city, and most would assume he's a crescent, and that wouldn't go particularly well. Even a city as cosmopolitan as Freiburg.
Oh, guten Tag, Master Kazi.
He says, I looked for you at your home. He says, I looked for you at the Wakund. He says, I may have startled your young sister.
Oh, I will smooth things over with her when I get home.
He nods. He Oh, and I just want to mention for Ruda's sake, Anna was at the burial as well, amongst those in attendance. Kazi says there's there's some news from Montaigne. I've
Oh.
been bringing supplies to Veronica as I am able to. A force of Avalon ships have landed on Montaigne's border, on the coast.
A lot of ships. A fleet?
Yes. Says, and Avalon soldiers have debarked into Montaigne.
How far in have they been moving?
He says, to my understanding, they have been moving slowly, taking towns. He says that the entire country is in an uproar. He says, it's chaos. He says, so I have not traveled the distance myself to see firsthand, he says, but I know the rumors that are coming. And the rumors that are coming are that the Avalon are invading and that no force opposes them. They are calling themselves liberators.
Opportunists, perhaps.
I do not know very much about their queen, but by reputation that does not seem the kind of woman that she is.
Leaders can be good intentioned to no end, and the people who carry out their orders may have ulterior motives.
He says, and leaders may be beholden to others.
Avalon especially.
He says, but given everything that you saw in Charus, he says,
They will have a hard time maintaining any foothold anywhere that is not a small town.
I am preparing another travel, says, this time to the south. Says, I intend to arrive in Fischler lands, says, and see how they fare, since I have also seen the arraignment of Seeger's armies. He says it's very dangerous for us in the city, so I am sending as many of the Black Crosses as I can out of it to be of use still.
Make use of what you can. It would seem the nation is mobilizing for better or worse, enemies and allies alike.
Says, if you have need of us, we will need a few days together.
Nothing comes to mind as of now. Do what you do best. Any information.
I'm offering it as a warning. It says that if we are needed, we will need a few days.
And that is most understandable.
In the meantime, if there is something that you wish to pass to me, leave a message at the Stone House. I will be checking in there regularly.
Understood. Thank you for coming to speak in person. It's troubling news, but not entirely unsurprising.
He kind of, he looks around like the shop. You can see some of the trees that are like poking through, and he kind of regards them thoughtfully. But it's not. If nothing else, you could say that most of the Black Crosses seem to be just in generally suspicious of things they didn't understand. Kazi doesn't quite seem that way. He seems like, probably with so much of the world having been strange to him from where he came from, that he looks at things with a different eye.
That's fair. That's very fair.
And the new spear that you saw him making the last time that he was like with the Bearhausen seems like it's definitely gotten some use to it.
Oh.
So he's he departs after that, and when when Hans gets back to his home, like late in the night, he can hear noises from like the back balcony. And when he takes a look at there, Anna is out there practicing moves with a blade that's a little heavy for her. But still kind of going through what Hans very much recognizes as the formality of forms. And, like it's every martial art has things that they practice over and over to repeat until they become muscle memory. And she's doing exactly that. The strangest part is that like Otto is there on the balcony, and as she's kind of like moving through them and stuff like that, he's whispering very softly. He's just counting time like a metronome.
Oh.
Like as if that's something that's so familiar to him that it triggers deep memories. Does that make sense? He's counting the same one would count steps when they're marching, or
Yeah.
count time when doing forms.
Yeah, he'll go and join them. He'll kind of watch for a second and peek out. Ah, your forms are looking very good, sister. Been practicing much already?
She just is practicing much, but I don't think they're looking good yet.
You will get there in time. The blade is quick to learn and long to master.
She nods. I remember all the time that Strauss put you through.
Oh, time indeed. I have much to learn yet still.
Ingvild doesn't make us repeat things until we throw up.
It would seem she is an effective teacher nonetheless.
And she kind of sets the blade down, and she just steps into Hans's embrace and wraps her arms around him and hugs him like she used to do when she was a lot smaller. It's something that she's been so touch averse, you know what I'm saying, that it definitely means something that she's willing to. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It stays in the moment for a little bit, and then I'm sorry I've been away so long. It's so frequently, at least. How have you fared at home?
She says, I think you always preferred your own company at the palace. She says you tolerated the nosy little sister from time to time.
It is good to have you back. Things are almost looking up now.
She nods. And she kind of steps away. There's like a certain like melancholy that settles on her for a moment as she kind of puts her hands on the balcony. And she says, I got something for you.
You did. What is it? Yes. Surely you know it is not necessary, but
He eats a face full of Snowball as she spins around. I got a 44 on the hit roll.
Oh yeah. Staggers back.
And she just looks like, for the first time in quite a while, she actually looks like a child. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just realized I've completely cornered myself in the corner of this house and hit my older athletic brother with a snowball, but she has no regrets. And she's trying very hard not to just die of laughter at the look on his face.
It shakes the snow off.
And she's totally trying to dart around him into the house.
Yeah.
Is he allowing it, or is
He'll
he?
engage. He'll engage for a bit.
All right. Yeah.
Snowballs are thrown inside the house.
Kick the door frame. Get her with the snow off the roof.
I imagine there's a certain amount of like play wrestling and, like, no, not, back outside with you. Lots of snowballs
Yeah.
like dodged back and forth. Both of them probably pelted with it by the end. Otto catching
Probably.
some friendly fire.
I was just gonna say one of them hits Otto in the side of the head, and they both go, "Shit!"
They stop for a moment. Like, oh no.
Yeah, and it's probably the moment that she kind of like, hey, I should take him in. She says, I get you both some warm soup.
Yes, it had plenty of excitement for the day.
And she just smiles and she hugs him again.
Hugs her back.
His father never would have let us do that.
No. Would sooner have us thrown out, sleeping in the street.
Disowned,
for the night.
disinherited.
Oh, yes. Written out of every will and document in his library that collected dust for years.
She smiles at that. And
The paint fight to the snowball fight is so cute.
the what?
Just the like Runa teaching her how to be a kid when they had the paint fight to her initiating a snowball fight. It's just like a really nice development.
Our baby's growing.
So let me two things. Are we capable of going a little bit later tonight?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anybody that's a no? Let me just, and it's fine if you are. Okay.
I just saw Rose put her hand
Yeah,
up.
I saw a hand go up.
I am currently upstairs with no AC.
Oh, okay. Then I will do my best to get us in a reasonable amount of time. Let me cut to Len.
I can, if you want, I can just turn off my lid and be good.
If that's okay. And if you want to like step away and whatnot, I'm not getting back to Rosa tonight. So if you want, we can just kind of text you when we're at the end. If you want to come back and wave, fine too. Does that work? And if not, if you have to go, that's okay.
It's just really hot and getting really uncomfortable.
I cannot stand the heat, so I completely understand. So I'll leave it to you if you want to step away. If you'll just give Glory some notice so that she can like move cameras if needed. Is that a thing that can be done before I just promise that you can do that, producer?
You can just turn off the camera, right?
Yeah, and since I'm not host, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay.
You just tormented her with ice down the dress earlier, and she was probably like, "Oh my god, if only."
That sounds so good right now. It's 90
I
in
completely
here.
understand.
Oh, damn.
Hey, chill.
So Len had mentioned that he's kind of like working on the details of the wedding, but they don't have all of them yet. And probably not leaving again to see how things are going in Usura.
No, absolutely not. He will, hunt down Gav to see if he'll be his best man, his meat bros, and then Hans and Gerard to see if they'll be groomsmen. They might have to do it twice, but they're also bros.
Did you call us pros as in groomsmen pros?
Bros.
Ah,
My brothers in arms. Although I don't know that you and I have fought together yet. We'll have to go start a fight sometime just to fix that. But yeah, other than that, if they're still working out the all of the plans for the wedding, and he's happy to help. He's trying to be proactive and check on venues and availabilities and catering and such. He's not going to be one of those grooms who's like, you can handle everything. I'm sure you don't want me involved just to avoid the responsibility. That's
I think
not actually Len.
I think Len is probably getting the first idea of just how many people are hoping to be invited to it, and a sense of like the scale of how big it's going to be, which means that a venue that's like the size of City Hall or the cathedral or the Bear House is going to be needed.
And that's gonna kind of mess with Len for a little bit because he's like, we're on the council and such, but we're not like minor nobility like Gav or Hans or anything. We don't have titles. We don't have land. We have cats, and a place to live. Although we're looking at a more permanent house than Gertrude's bachelor shacks,
Yeah.
of course. So there'll be some of that too. But he's going to be completely thrown off by the wait. A lot of people want to come to our wedding. Why? I don't know these people.
But surprisingly, like he does. Like they're members of the Wakund who he's fought beside, that are like, yeah, they're under Hans's command, but he was there,
Yeah.
And the entire Size to Size family. Jemay has promised that they will not heckle.
Much.
She can't make promises for honoring, but she's promised that the rest of the Size to Size will not heckle.
Much.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. So yeah, he's gonna look for somewhere bigger. I mean, Cardinal Ciosa, nice guy, fan, but neither he nor his bride-to-be are terribly pious or even religious.
Is he going to write to Cardinal Ciosa? Because a wedding of somebody that he considered a beloved parishioner might be a reason for him to come.
I mean, he'll definitely invite Ciosa, yeah, but like holding it at the cathedral is where Len's just kind of like, I know God, goddess. I call her mom. We talk.
Just as a warning, if you invite a cardinal, he's probably going to assume that he's officiating. So,
well, and I think Rosa also was his parishioner for a long time. Like she may not be super religious, but I think she was a member of his church for a while too. So you may wish to consult with your bride-to-be before deciding not to hold it in the cathedral.
I would, but she got really hot and had to go lie down.
She is really hot. You're right. She's super hot.
She is.
That's fine. So as a member of the council, there is definitely like, if he would like to have it at the cathedral, they will make it available. Does that make sense? If they would like it somewhere else, they can make it available. Cardinal Ciosa himself he is willing to come if he is like notified with enough time, which they're going to be able to do.
Yeah.
And so, it's probably like a lot of letter writing, a lot of correspondence, a lot of resting his wings, so to speak.
Yeah, because he's been flying for a long time, a lot of places, and it's nice to just sort of be able to wander around.
And there is kind of during this time, I think there's like a steady stream of like small bands of the Usurans who like sharing information between each other because they're fellow Usurans. Does that make sense? So one of those is the former next door neighbor and next door business owner Tobar Rai, who's on the assembly, who held a crush for quite some time on Rosa, you know what I'm saying, but is happy to go out and buy a drink with Len and wish him well. Does that make sense? Yeah. They're like, the better man won. It's like you weren't in the running, but okay, sure.
He's definitely not going to be that guy. Be like, you weren't in the running, but he'll be like, well, I say this with love. I don't know that you would have survived a lot of what happened. That would have been fallout from dating or being with Rosa. Maybe you would have. I could be wrong, but it's been a lot. He's worth every moment of it, but it's been a lot.
He says some women, he says, worth courting death over. He says, and some are worth courting death over in our imagination.
Yep. I mean, I'm willing to like have to put up with Honorine more to marry Rosa, and that's a whole
He says,
situation there as it is.
that is right. She has a sister.
Yep.
And Tobar kind of, he snaps his collar a little bit.
That you don't. And Len is almost immediately like that's a non-starter for a lot of reasons. Although there are a lot of other deceased women who would be cousins, and I think many of them are single who will be at the wedding.
So you're saying there's a chance?
And he definitely kind of like he says, he says a businessman, a respected member of the city. He says, you don't think I have a chance with this woman?
No, and it's not mine to tell why, but if you want to be slapped down, go bark up that tree, friendo. This is a friendly warning that there are other more.
Tobar has never been in the position to be slapped by noble women before. Is it something of a new thing?
I was not looking to unleash a new fetish, but more power to you, my friend.
You're not gonna stop this guy.
And
Incorrigible.
I do want you to have like a wits, and Tobar himself, his primary thing is probably either criminal or merchant. You can to use as like a social thing to read on him.
Let's see. So wits and yeah, I don't actually. Len doesn't have any criminal. He's got commoner, naturalist, performer, enforcer, and other naturalist.
I would say I'll give it to you with commoner with a slightly higher difficulty.
Okay.
Or performer, your choice.
Let's go with commoner. We'll try wits and commoner. Why did that?
Yeah, you push the button. You got to use the rolling thing.
Oh, god damn it! It's been a while since I've had to do anything except tookie tookie caca caca. So
It's all good.
7 keep 25.
Okay. So Len has met with a few different council members at this point. You know what I'm saying? Like not like in an extended capacity, but has at least met them. Tobar is the first one that he's really seen that looks like he's made something of a transition in terms of financial standing by virtue of the position that he now has. Like everybody else is like, Len's got a pretty good gauge of people's level of income.
Mm-hmm.
A little while ago, Tovar was taking a job as Geralt's like guard outside of his shop. You know what I'm saying? And now he's dressed like a well-off merchant. And he doesn't own a shop or have a business.
You seem to have done well for yourself there on the council. What did you transition into? Obviously, you've made some investments.
He says, oh, no. He says, being a counselor, he says, he says, the easiest business in the world.
Huh. Well, maybe I'll have to get out of that act. And yeah, I thought being on the council was all responsibility.
He says, the assembly is, of course, a great responsibility, but there's only so much time that we can bring things forward. He says, there are a lot of people willing to make a donation to make sure that they are at the head of that list. He says, everyone in my district, of course, gets onto the list. He says, but the order, he says, that those issues come before the assembly, he says, they can take a little
greasing of the wheels.
He nods. He says, everyone understands this is how business is done.
I definitely understand. And in his head, he's like, and I'm definitely going to report you.
Absolutely. And the thing is like the person that needs to be reported to is really like the riverfront itself. Does that make sense? And it is impossible to imagine that at least every business person who's bribed Tobar isn't already aware of that.
That's fair. That's fair. In his
Um,
head, then he's like, well, at least I'll note it. I keep forgetting how somehow I keep forgetting how lawless Freeburg is. And I feel like we're
Right.
moving towards laws, but we're not there yet.
And there's some drinking to be had and whatnot. I don't know how much, like, Len is very familiar with Usuran nobles. They were all corrupt as fuck, at least the ones that he worked for and were around the
Oh, yeah.
palace and stuff like that. But I don't know how much does this like bother Len? How much does he want to look into it?
It does bother Len, even if it's considered the cost of business here. He knows that what it means is the rich are going to use their money to get richer, and the people who have grievances that might be, the difference between living and dying over time, not immediately, but over time, are just endlessly going to be bumped back down the list in favor of people who already have enough money.
All right. So I'm going to give him the chance to do some stealth, following Tobar, kind of get a better sense of who exactly he's taking money from. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? And also to get a sense of like what the perception of the people inside of the riverfront think of Tobar.
Yep, and we don't need to owl for that. We don't need to fly at all. We can mau our way through that.
You can mau, you can just walk around. I mean, he does have enough reputation that he's kind of noticeable now, but
Yeah.
Dude is a bear. Dude is a bear.
Yeah, nobody will suspect that the bear is spying on you. They're just gonna let the bear do whatever it wants.
So go ahead and you can do the naturalist for just the sneaking around.
Okay.
I'm not going to require your transition roll. So
8. Keep 4. What the fuck, dice? 27.
okay. I'm going to give you a +5 for the cat form, so that's still up to
Okay.
30. So that's still very good. And so
Yep.
I'm going to give you two things about that. The people of the riverfront are not happy with Tobar. Does that make sense? Although they don't yet have a specific sort of like why as to the grievance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, they just know something's off.
Yeah, what they do know is that there were supplies that were earmarked for riverfront that never got there. And when he's following Tobar around, the place that he goes where he comes out with like money bags a little bit heavier isn't in the riverfront. It's in the Philosopher's Stone. The nobles already had their own representative, and so in order to outsize their representation in a representative democracy, they bought another assembly person's votes.
Is it a specific noble's house or just a business owned?
It's several. Specifically, the one that he seems to be meeting with the most often is Joseph Masterson, who runs Masterson's art gallery, which Len hasn't been here long, but even when he was living back in the Drakennest, he'd heard about that place as a place where like artists, when they sold stuff to the Masterson gallery, he was supposed to resell it. That's what he does. He's an art gallery. But he often took like 90% of the commission that he made and only gave 10% back to like starving artists.
He's like an extra level of scumbag. Outstanding. Well, we're going to do something about this, but first off, in between all of that, Len will have conferred with Rosa, by which I mean I DM'd Sands via Discord, and he is sending a letter to Cardinal Ciosa well ahead of time to ask him to officiate. They're getting married at the tree. Whatever Len has to do to make that happen.
That is there is a request that one of two things happen. They either set up the kind of things necessary for a ceremony that will persist afterwards, making the area around the tree like a permanent park that's fairly well kept, or that whatever they put up can be taken down. Like one of those two things. Like either lay out enough money that it's like nice. Okay.
We're gonna go for the park at that.
Gav would approve.
Yep. Gav would approve. He figures most of the council or all of the council would approve that, even if they don't put up a little plaque saying, here the council stabbed a giant death snake to death and we got a tree for it, they'll still know why the park is there. So they'll set that up, and then he's going to go talk to a representative that he knows of the assembly about the you can't really call it corruption when there are no laws, but it still feels pretty fucking corrupt.
Here's the thing. The people of Riverfront will be upset that their representative is representing the Stone of the Philosopher. So
yeah. Well, first he's going to make sure Gav knows about it and see if he has any insights about, who's buying who and what's going on. And then he's going to work out how best to make sure the people of the Stonefront know what's going on. Or of the Riverfront, sorry.
The so the sort of immediate thing that's going to be coming up is that, like, when the assembly was first put into place, the idea was that they would have they'd have like seasonal elections if they felt that the election was necessary. Does that make sense? Like basically there's sort of like a vote that's called for that's going to be the equivalent of like a, what is it in England? Like the no faith or no no confidence.
Yeah. No confidence vote.
So like a no confidence needs to be held against Tobar, and they also need to have one like for Lilith, because that's not really like a no confidence so much as just a like no.
They need to fill the seat. Yeah.
So they so it's very, I think it's not going to be an issue for him to like distribute enough such that there's going to be a no confidence against Tobar. Does that make sense? The question is if he wants to make sure that it can't be traced back to him as Len on the council member.
Yeah, that's definitely what he's going to do for now. That needs to be the people. It doesn't need to also carry his weight. The people need to know, and then the people need to do something about it.
Yeah, this is just a no confidence, not a we're backing somebody else. Just like we feel that you should know this.
Yes.
And so probably the best person, I think, for like, I think Gav would probably realize that the best person to actually make that aware is the Freiburg Gazette.
Len was thinking about that. So yeah, he would just be like, it's going to need to be, sources say, but he's sure that some junior detectives or junior journalists would be able to stake out, and he can tell them, this is when he's there, and this is when he goes in with not much money, and when he comes out with heavy pockets.
Yeah.
And just make sure that they can cooperate, and then let the story go.
Yeah. And that's, they're completely ready to run on that after just like a days of investigation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They get a few business representatives that are in the riverfront itself that are willing to talk about like, their own inability to get things before the assembly.
Yep. Missing supplies, all sorts of pretty much everything that they can dig up.
Yeah. And what they dig up that comes out with the Gazette is that supplies of supplies of the herbs from the tree, like the little bits of bark and stuff like that that are gathered, the nobles bought what was meant for Riverfront. And so the staggering difference in deaths between the Riverfront and that area was a direct result of that criminal channel. And that criminal channel was possible because of Tobar.
Well, somebody might not wake up some morning and it's not going to be Len's direct doing.
It's so like the no confidence vote like happens the same day the story breaks. Oh, we lost Honorine. No, you just moved. Sorry, you just swapped around on me. You switched places.
Sorry, I had to turn my camera off.
That's all right. We all got to pick our nose sometimes.
So there are quickly challenges in like there's a new pair of contestants that are running in the city, and it's sort of comical because one of the people that's running in the riverfront that's running at the head of it is a landlord, and the other one who's running against him is his tenant. And his tenant is almost doing it to troll him, but his tenant is extremely fucking sharp.
Len, when he finds out, is probably going to see about a little support to even the run. He's not throwing like his full weight behind it or anything, but if there should be just a little something to even the scales there, because the landlord is still going to have more money than a tenant in general.
Yeah, so the tenant's name is Horst, and the landlord's name is Rainer Garsh. Rainer is notorious for like complex contracts with like all sorts of like mercurial laws and reasons that he can throw them out or fine them or things like that, such that he tends to extract like almost twice the value of rent from all of his tenants. Horst is notorious for being able to tie him in loopholes with his own contracts. He's a cobbler. He should know nothing about law, but he's actually appeared before judges and won like cases against his own landlord and can't be evicted from the place because he knows the contracts better than the man who wrote them. And that ability to do that has sort of endeared him to a lot of people and is why he's like even in the running.
Yep. Well, that may be something we nudge the Gazette towards as well. Just, here's a guy who would lead you dry in a heartbeat, and here's the guy who on his own learned enough to protect his fellow renters.
They have a matchup at the Shouting Square and everyone in the city shows up.
Yeah.
It's definitely looking like it's going to be a fairly big matchup. Like, Rainer is rich, and it's probable that given how things went, that he has the backing of he has the backing of the Philosopher's Stone behind him, because he's probably somebody again who they would find flexible.
Yeah.
Horst is like a peasant who makes very nice shoes and is obnoxiously trollish as a lawyer.
Which, Len would fully support. People got to have them nice kicks or whatever the medieval word for that would be. And Len can appreciate somebody who would learn the law just to troll an asshole. So they said there's going to be some shadow support there. As best he can, and doing his best, mostly more than anything, to try and keep it honest. Like he's, not trying to dump the scales onto Horse's side, but rich people backed by richer people tend to do complete asshole moves.
Maybe just keep an eye on anybody that Rainer meets with from the Philosopher's Stone.
Yeah.
All right.
And kind of, once again, nudge the Gazette there and just be like, look, they're doing it again.
All right.
Confused.
So let me cut over to Honorine, because I think so we're at 2.5 hours. I know you're pretty out of it when we got started. So if we want, we can do a scene now, or you can just be like the first on the table for next episode. It's up to you.
I'm good either way. Wait, I don't want to be the cold open next time. No.
It won't be the cold open. It'll just be you're the first person I go to after the cold open. Does that make sure?
Okay.
Like, I knew there'd be more than one downtime episode. I just I wanted to get something in for everybody, and I didn't quite manage my time well enough to do that.
I think I can be pretty, if everyone's still okay with going a little late, I think I can take care of it.
Okay.
I know there's like poor Gerard has been sitting there since like the beginning 2.5 hours ago.
Thank you very
So
much. And I know that this is the downside of the kind of downtime style stuff is that everybody's split apart, but I've been trying to get everybody
I'm
some.
down with the sword, so
I've been watching you play with your sword. It's been very entertaining.
Phrasing.
I said what I
Sausage.
said. Anyway, yeah, so I think I DM'd, what did I DM you? I DM'd you a little bit, but so the thing that Honorine is most working on during her time alone, like in addition, she's usually doing like some writing, and she's she's always working on like her next play, like especially with so much time in between performances at the Bear House. She's probably got like 2 or 3 shows in the pipe now at this point. And she's been staying with Ettore. She can't really stay with her aunt because I think her aunt will yell at her. But she's been staying with Ettore and like sitting across the room from him and making sure that nobody murders him in his fevered sleep. What she's also been working on, when she's not with Ettore. Okay, no, actually, when she is with Ettore, one of the things that she works on in the hours that she spends, like, while he's out of it and everything, is since she's been able to compile a fair amount of wealth in Freeburg, like just from influence and also her income from the Bear House and being a noble and all that stuff. I think she's been working to put together tuition scholarships for the children whose parents have been lost in the plague to go to the academy where she teaches. Or other academies around the city. Like, she's probably not just doing it but I think she's mainly working with the headmaster of the academy where she teaches to ensure that there are not a whole bunch of uneducated orphaned children from this plague, from this winter, especially since more of them survived through this winter than otherwise maybe would have, depending on what kind of bell curve this plague has. So I think she's been doing that.
I would like a Wits and Scholar roll from you. And if you have an accounting specialty,
Don't.
then
I don't.
okay.
We don't do math in this house. So you said Wits and Scholar?
Yes.
What is my scholar at? $52.
Ooh. So, as part of the course of her research, she does sort of like an assessment of like, how much does it actually cost to go to the school, and like, the cost as a I'm trying to figure out how to put this. So one of the first things that she finds that is really surprising is 2/3 of the nobles who have sent their kids here, their payments are in arrears. They owe money and they have not yet paid. Now granted, they're landed nobles, but the thing is like they're landed nobles in Eisen, in a city, in a country that like has had like Iron Princes fall, and an enormous amount of turbulence. And the degree to it, like most nobles wouldn't allow debts for scholarship or something like that to go beyond like a single like semester, right? Like you'd pay one before the next. There are students here who have not only like the 4-year debt from their own education, but also their older sibling yet unpaid.
And the headmaster is just sort of letting that go?
So
Because
think
usually they'll kick your ass out.
In modern education, yes. But the thing is like these people, they only provide education to nobility. You know what I'm saying? And if he gets a reputation for kicking people out or outing them over financial issues, like that's a huge amount of dishonor for them. And they might just like never send their kids here or be worried about it. Does that make sense? Um, and the thing is like as she goes through his books, he's still doing fine. Does that make sense? Even with like 2 out of 3 nobles not paying what they owe for tuition, it's illustrious enough and expensive enough that he's covering all of his expenses.
Must
That
be
was literally
nice.
going to be my next question.
Secondarily, he is diversified. As she's kind of going through some of the books, she like takes a look. He owns dozen small businesses throughout the city. He takes a small percentage of them. You know what I'm saying? He also has some money invested into vendor markets. He's consistently been backing things that are guild backed. And the reason that she's kind of going through the books is fairly clear. It's because when one guild backed like store has difficulties, other members of that same guild pool money to like support them. And so him buying a portion of each of those is of very little risk to him. But he doesn't care about the amount of return that he gets, just that he gets a return. If it's safe and secure, that's fine by him. He's in many ways like, I mean, he's a nobleman, but he's a nobleman who understands mercantile things in a way few noblemen do. For most nobles, delving into this level of accounting is very much beneath them. And it's an interesting model for how a noble can support themselves without lane of their own that is certainly a value for the Size to Size family in its current predicament.
Yeah, I actually was thinking that I think what probably started out as honoring starting to offer like tuition scholarships probably turns into like long conversations with him about those things and about someone who's at that level of success usually wants to talk about it. So I think she's probably going to try to take advantage of that, and also sort of within those conversations try to figure out, okay, well, if this is not something that I need, like she's looking for a way to invest in the city and in the scholarship and in the furtherance of the city that she's sort of adopted as her home.
He says, may I be terribly blunt with you? As a noblewoman, he says, a woman of gentry, he says, it is my belief that the time of gentry is coming to an end. The time of nobility is coming to an end. The success of the guilds of Vendel have been exported, and they are steadily creating a new class, a class with power, a class with wealth between nobility and peasantry, which I believe one day will completely supplant nobility. The wealth of nobles comes from the growth of fields. It is slow, it is predictable, it is not adaptable.
Okay.
He says, I do not intend to see. He says, I have no children of my own. He says, I have no legacy. This academy will be it. But I intend to see that it has enough support that it will last well into Freeburg's future. But everywhere I look in Eisen, I see nobility on a precipice.
You're not wrong.
If there is to be a new imperator in Eisen, and they wish to survive a generation, they will have to do it by putting an entire class of merchants to the sword.
That's food for thought. And she's clearly, as she's telling him, like, oh, that's food for thought, she's clearly disturbed. Like, she can't really imagine a world without nobles. Like, how it's very difficult for her to wrap her head around the idea, like, let alone try to plan for it. She's like, what do you mean? Who will rule the people? Who will guide them? I who without nobles to give them a moral imperative and guideposts to follow and rules that they must adhere to, it'll be anarchy, it'll be chaos. Like, what? And like, she's just very, like, I don't know that she puts it in exactly those words, but it's clearly just like, what do you mean?
I like kind of part of that to come out as he kind of like raises an eyebrow. He says, which of the Iron Princes would you point to as the moral authority of Eisen?
Well, Eisen is clearly in chaos at the moment without an imperator, and
Montaigne, then.
also in chaos. There is a crisis.
You think perhaps these things are associated with one another?
There still needs to be a more educated, enlightened class to show the way.
Says, but education is not synonymous with blood.
Well, no.
Says, and soon education will be an important distinction between those who have and those who do not. Says, meaning education itself will become a commodity and likely an expensive one.
If nothing else, who would be able to afford education outside
He
of
says,
Freiburg?
do you know who affords the education in Freiburg?
You have set something up here that is clearly unique, but is obviously not replicable.
I don't think it would be particularly difficult to replicate, actually.
Well, you would have to put yourself at the head of a number of academies. You can't be in 12 cities at once running an academy in each.
Suppose I could create a scholars guild and do much the same.
Well, but they would have to have the same acumen. They would have to have the same. What you've done is singularly impressive. I don't think you understand that.
He says, I have no doubt that with a few years of study, you could recreate the process in Charus.
I could not picture Lemperor tolerating anything like that.
It's bold of you to suggest the Emperor will be returning to Charus.
Whoever takes his place, then. There have been nobles and rulers for most of history in the manner that they have ruled, because that is the natural way that society should be ordered.
Says, republics are created when empires fall. We look to Numa for an example. Says from there, they grow slowly into oligarchs through the accumulation of wealth and power, and they become nobility. In time, a single noble supplants them, creating a new empire, until it eventually fails under its own corruption and self-service and becomes a republic.
Well, that
Says
happened once,
twice
twice.
in Numa alone. And one could count the creation of the Vendel states as a third.
And I certainly don't point to, if you could currently point to anyone on the continent as a moral authority, possibly you could point to the church, but certainly they're falling down on that job. But there does have to be a class of leaders. There does have to be a certain foreordained group for men to look to.
The Imperator was blessed by the church. He was as foreordained as one could be. And he led Eisen into ruin unmatched in its history. Says the question is one of authority and where one derives that authority. Says, but the reality of all of history is that people have only been governed as long as they are content to be governed.
Your average person does not want to have the responsibility of governance.
And your average person does not want to take up arms against knights and powerful men, but they will when they are left with no other choice.
Yes, I'm saying that the current state of flux is not an excuse to just throw the system out.
No, the current state of flux is just anticipatory of the system naturally replacing itself.
I don't think there's anything natural about this replacement.
That's entirely possible, he says. It's entirely possible that my love of history has allowed me to misread the situation around me.
I just simply say that there's, for instance, there's really nothing natural about what's going on in Charus right now. And there's nothing natural about how the city was put into its current state of upheaval.
I am unfamiliar with that situation, but what I am familiar with is the stories about the Emperor's excess prior to that.
He was flawed. Is flawed. Is.
He invited ruin. And he's saying it like lowercase r, not like
Yeah, it
referring
just
to,
took me
you know
a
what I'm
second.
saying? And accumulated enormous wealth for his personal benefit at the expense of all of the oligarchs who normally would have maintained his power. Says rebellion became widespread. Rebellion became inevitable. And whatever supernatural events are also in motion, that certainty was a matter of hubris.
I got thoroughly distracted because Zoom thought I was doing an okay symbol.
Yeah, it's okay.
It was men, people. I'm saying men are particularly prone to it, mostly because men are usually the rulers, but people, they have to be a very particular, singular kind of person not to have power. Give them ideas of grandiosity, but that doesn't mean that the system that elevates them is useless or deserves to be dismantled. I understand that there are a multitude of examples of poor leadership that you can pull from at the moment. But it would be foolish to not also remember that throughout history, there have been several great leaders who are both the leaders of republics and the leaders of empires.
The change from one to the next, I think, happens invisibly more often than it happens in plain sight. The day this institution takes the sons of merchants in alongside nobility, because there aren't enough nobles to pay for the costs of the academy here, is going to be a subtle sign of the transition from one form of rulership to the next.
Well, I just wonder what use it is to the son of a merchant to come and learn Newman.
I don't think the son of the merchant cares about learning Newman. I mean, he might be quite interested. Like, we have many scholars in our midst who are just appreciative of knowledge of all sorts. He
Yes.
says, but regardless of that, what he is interested in purchasing is not the knowledge of Newman, but the stature of his attendance here. He is attending for the opportunity to spend time amongst nobility, to leave here with friends who are nobles. And when those nobles are no longer in attendance, it will be the sons of other wealthy merchants that he will be interested in attending with.
So how do you foresee I could go around and around with you about this all night. I don't have all night, unfortunately. What do you foresee? How do you foresee this transition being as soft as possible? Because there are certainly people that could be that I think many would not mind seeing deposed in as brutal a way as possible. Posen comes to mind. Koenig Sieger, the other one, comes to mind. But
Says, I think an Iron Prince like Logan Seeger, who could see when his time has passed, will make such transitions as bloodless as possible.
and how would you suggest contributing to that?
By supporting the levers that already exist of representation, by giving them as much authority and respect as they can be as an institution. It says a generation from now, says voting for the leaders of a district in the assembly will be normal. People will have grown up without the idea that someone who rules by blood has right over them. And Logan himself was put into the position not by the Imperator, but by a vote of his peers.
I am sensitive to the fact that there are certain families that, I mean, my own family is an example of someone who has come from not a long line of nobles, but just anybody can't be a leader. Just anybody can't be an assembly person. There's inherent qualities that are necessary, and I think it would be wise to find ways to continue to cultivate that.
If a quality is inherent, it cannot be cultivated. I think the qualities that you are referring to are ones that are taught, and an institution like this can assist in teaching it.
Maybe, but it will also probably teach the same kind of corruption that comes with that kind of power. So you come back to the same problem.
Yes, eventually the system is replaced by oligarchy, which is in turn replaced by empire, which is in turn overthrown. The system is inherently bloody. And I think it can be improved. I think cyclically it can be interrupted, but one would need a system that can survive generations to do so. And I don't have that answer.
I think
But
if you
is
did, you would probably need to be elevated to far beyond headmaster.
he smiles, says, I do the best I can with what I have. Says, but it's likely a conversation that many papers could be written on.
Well, I'll continue to think on what you said. Maybe it'll go into the next play.
Another inestimable method of education. He says, you know your last play. He says, I insisted that every student here attend at least once.
Oh. The one about the one I wrote for
Loring.
for Commander Loring?
You know,
That wasn't a play for children.
says the students that are here are young men and young women.
All right.
And he smiles. And I think that is the place that I'm going to need to drop the curtain because we are, half an hour over. So
yeah. I think the only
next
thing I had left was that she was communing at night with the Shadow Man because of grief and worry and all of the things. So I think that conversation probably would have at least done her a little bit of good.
So I just wanted to note we had a raid. So hello, Dark Domain RPGs.
Hello,
I hope that your
Raiders!
game was excellent as well. Let us know what you were playing. And in the meantime, I'm going to read us out for tonight. But thank you for coming by. I hope you enjoyed what you saw. All right. All right, so thank you for everybody who's watching us on YouTube or live on Twitch. Audience participation always means the world to us. And if you're on YouTube, smash the like, hit the subscribe, and make a comment in the down below. Here at Dirty 20, we always sign out with the same call to action. Be nice, be kind when you have the spoons, but even when you don't, be nice. Be nice to strangers, be nice to family, be nice to your loved ones, and be nice to yourself. Thank you for coming on this journey with us, and we will see you next week.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.